So we've now reached the final panel of the day. And if you have an eagle eye and you've been online today, then you might have seen this report making the rounds around all the relevant platforms. So I'm really excited to hear about the findings, since it's also my first time actually hearing about what this team has discovered. The next session is on AI and strategic decision making. Thank you to the panelists and moderators, to Artie, to Alex, Anna, and Roa. Introducing this next session, which will include Megan Hughes, a research associate at CETaS, Dr. Richard Carter, a senior visiting fellow at CETaS, and Claire Hancock, director of the Cabinet Office. They'll be chaired by Sasha Babuta, our CETaS director, and introduced by Madeleine Alessandri, chair of the Joint Intelligence Committee.
They couldn't mic me up because I don't design mics for women's clothing at the moment, so can you all hear me? Brilliant. Well, a bit like Gav said, it's great to see so many familiar faces in this audience today and some old friends here. So thank you for the invitation, and I'm really excited about the work that we've been doing with CETaS, and as has just been said, is getting quite a lot of really good coverage in the media today. But as chair of the Joint Intelligence Committee, which is my job at the moment, I am the one who's responsible for making sure that our ministers and senior officials across the UK government, when they're facing those high-stakes national security moments and those high-stake decision moments, have the best possible assessment of the situation. And in many ways, today, we find ourselves in the strongest position we've ever been to meet that task. There's vast amounts of data that's available to us. It comes from a huge range of sources, open and secret. And any of these, either alone or in any combination, could give and shed light on some of the threats we face, or give us warning, give us early warning of what may be coming. But the sheer volume and velocity, and all the other V's that Gavin mentioned, of these available data, in itself creates its own challenges. And the issues that face my analysts today, some of whom are in this room with us now, is how to absorb and make sense of that data. How to work out what's most relevant, what's most important, spotting patterns, spotting anomalies, and putting that whole jigsaw piece puzzles together to get a picture. Now, advances in artificial intelligence are offering us huge and really exciting potential to help surface new intelligence insights and in boosting the productivity of my already very hard-working analysts. And we've got to harness that potential, because if we don't harness that potential, we face the prospect of drowning in the data and going under. We face a real risk that we will fail to spot emerging risks or trends as a result. So at the same time as bringing help, artificial intelligence also brings us some new challenges in how we produce intelligence and how we assess it. So my business is the business of uncertainty. We have to test the evidence base. We have to bring a skeptical eye to scrutinizing all of the intelligence that is put in front of us. We have to constantly scan for bias in the open source data sets that are available. And we want to know as much as we possibly can about the accuracy and consistency of the lines of insight that we're getting over time. And these questions of bias, robustness, validation, which have been around for a while, apply just as much to AI systems as they do to the more traditional sources of insight that we have, both secret and open. So it's brilliant that CETaS have helped us to think really deeply about what it will take to successfully integrate artificial intelligence into our work, and how we can bring the same professional standards and healthy skepticism to evaluating the reliability and the robustness of AI-enriched insights as we do with other sources. But the question of trust and accountability is really the critical thing here. We need to take real care to ensure that when decision makers choose to act, they know how much confidence to have in that evidence base, and that we can convey the reasons for that level of confidence in very clear and consistent ways. So a human analyst can explain their reasoning, and I quite often sit down with my analysts and we go backwards and forwards on a particular issue, and so I understand their reasoning for reaching a particular analytical conclusion. An AI system may not. So we will need to be very clear about the accuracy and consistency of AI systems that we deploy in the intelligence process and assure that they're used appropriately. Because rightfully, ultimately, we remain accountable for the accuracy of our analysis, even when more of it is assisted by AI. So what CETaS have helped us do is to understand much better what it will take to build the processes and the systems that we need to deploy AI wisely in the intelligence analysis process. It underlines for us the real need to train and equip our analysts to use AI with wisdom and with confidence, and to consider also what support our decision makers might need when facing higher stakes choices, especially when AI systems have played a significant role in giving us our understanding. So doing this new research has been really groundbreaking for us. It's been groundbreaking in how we bring together professional expertise from across academia and from government to consider some really hard problems. And I was part of a tabletop exercise that formed part of this research. And that really brought home and demonstrated just how valuable it is to have a diverse mix of minds and skills in the room when considering how much weight to put on the outputs of AI systems. So in our exercise, we had a really rich mixture. We had data scientists, we had technologists, we had foreign policy experts, we had lawyers, we had good old-fashioned securocrats. It was a real mix, and so it was, to go to Gavin's phrase, a powerful, inclusive community and a fascinating conversation. It also demonstrated to me actually a massive range of knowledge base around the table around artificial intelligence. And so how we need to really invest in upskilling everyone in an AI so we can fully harness its power and build our intelligence edge by using it. I'm going to pause now because the panel are going to come in, but as a final thing from me, a massive shout out and thank you to the CETaS team, colleagues at GCHQ, and my own team in the GIO for doing this groundbreaking work that's led to this report. It is going to make us much stronger, and AI is going to be a fantastic tool in our armoury going forward. Thank you.
Indeed, Madeleine. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you again to the Joint Intelligence Organisation and GCHQ for jointly sponsoring this project, and also to the wide range of participants across government who contributed to the research, again, many of whom are in this room. So thank you. And for the benefit of those of you who haven't necessarily seen the coverage today because you've been too busy focusing hard on all of the panel discussions at today's conference, I'll just read out a couple of quotes regarding the report that have been published today on the Independent website. And if you'd like to read that story for yourself, you can find it by searching Independent AI National Security. So the Deputy Prime Minister has responded to the report's recommendations as follows. We are already taking decisive action to ensure we harness AI safely and effectively, including hosting the inaugural AI Safety Summit and the recent signing of our AI Compact at the Summit for Democracy in South Korea. We will carefully consider the findings of this report to inform national security decision makers to make the best use of AI in their work protecting the country. That was Oliver Dowden, the Deputy Prime Minister. And secondly, GCHQ Director Anne Keast-Butler is quoted as saying, AI is not new to GCHQ or the intelligence assessment community, but the accelerating pace of change is. In an increasing contested and volatile world, we need to continue to exploit AI to identify threats and emerging risks alongside our important contribution to ensuring AI safety and security. So that provides a bit of context around why this report was commissioned and why the research is important. So in the time that we have left, Megan Hughes, who was the lead author on this report, is going to provide a brief presentation and an overview of the key findings and recommendations, and then we'll get into a discussion with some Q&A. And I must say this has been potentially the most fascinating project that I've worked on in my career so far, because it really cuts to the heart of the UK intelligence machinery, addressing key questions like what level of trust do national security decision makers feel comfortable investing in AI systems that they don't fully understand, or what level of assurance do we need when making high-stakes decisions on the basis of AI-enriched insights. So in the time that we have left, hopefully we'll dig under the skin of some of those really tricky questions. So Megan, over to you first.
Thank you, Sasha, and thank you, Madeleine, for those fantastic opening remarks. There we go. So on the screen, you can see the key research question that guided this study. And I'll kick us off by defining AI-enriched intelligence, which we term as intelligence that has been derived in part or in whole from AI, so machine learning and some generative AI systems. We also refer to principles of analytical rigor, transparency, and reliability of intelligence reporting and assessment. And these principles derive from the Common Analytical Standards owned by the PHIA, the Professional Head of Intelligence Assessment, and were informed by the Butler and Chilcott reports in the wake of the 2003 Iraq invasion. Currently, all-source intelligence analysts adhere to these principles by assessing and evaluating uncertainty in the evidence base. So, for example, limitations in the sourcing or content of intelligence. They then convey this uncertainty to strategic decision makers in government. What we wanted to address was when AI tooling is involved, what, if anything, changes? So firstly, what is the threshold at which the use of AI should be communicated to strategic decision makers? And secondly, how should limitations specifically related to AI be communicated to those decision makers? So I'll draw your attention to the tabletop exercise that Madeleine mentioned. So this was an activity we conducted with a group of senior government decision makers. We created a fictitious scenario where AI-enriched intelligence had been used to inform assessments sent to decision makers. And we examined the decision-making process, and what we wanted to see was what factors impacted the level of confidence decision makers had in a system that had been informed by AI-enriched intelligence. So what did we find? Well, firstly, AI is a valuable tool for intelligence analysis and assessment. We've discussed this a lot across the sessions today. We go so far as to say that failure to adopt AI tools could undermine the value of assessments to government. AI can be used to support analysts by with efficiency gains as a support function to automate day-to-day tasks. On the other hand, AI can be used to generate new insights. It can process huge volumes of data and find patterns that might not be discernible to human eyes. However, that doesn't mean that the use of AI comes without risk. And in fact, when we look at the context of intelligence assessment and decision-making, the use of AI could potentially exacerbate existing dimensions of uncertainty. AI could amplify cognitive biases. The opaque nature of black box systems could make it difficult for analysts to understand and explain the reasons a certain output was reached. During the TTX, we observed that decision makers exhibited a greater level of confidence in the ability of AI to identify specific events or occurrences, such as an attack, and less confidence in the ability of AI to determine causality, so for example, attributing said attack to a specific actor. We also found that decision makers require quite a high level of assurance to trust AI-enriched intelligence. And in fact, when presented with corroborating evidence from non-AI sources, decision makers were happier to trust AI-enriched intelligence. And lastly, as Madeleine mentioned, the technical knowledge really varied across participants during the TTX, and we found that that impacted on the decision-making activity. So those with higher levels of technical expertise or technical backgrounds really led the discussion and were the loudest in the room, with those with less technical expertise slightly more hesitant to join in the conversation. So what do we recommend in response to these findings? Well, firstly, we believe that guidance should be developed on how to communicate uncertainty specifically related to AI, and this would be aimed at the all-source intelligence analysis community. That guidance could form a common lexicon to be used to discuss AI-related uncertainty, and it would be important to outline the threshold at which AI and its limitations should be communicated upwards to decision makers. We also found that a layered approach should be taken to presenting technical information to decision makers. So it's important that at that final report level that goes to decision makers, technical information should be interpretable to a non-technical audience. However, it's important that those with more expertise that want access to further information can request further details on things like training data and technical specifications. Training was identified throughout the reports, throughout the research, as something that's really important, not only for the all-source assessment community, but also for strategic decision makers. But on top of training, access to expertise was something that would be really valuable. So we recommend that technical briefings should be offered immediately prior to those national security decision-making sessions that are the most high stakes and where AI-enriched intelligence has informed assessments. And lastly, we recommend that a formal accreditation program for those systems used specifically in intelligence analysis and assessment should be developed to ensure that systems meet required policy levels for factors such as transparency and robustness. And we think that these findings together would form the basis of building that higher level of trust in AI-enriched intelligence across both the all-source assessment community and the strategic decision-making community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan, for that summary. And I'd encourage you all to read the report and recommendations in full on the CETaS website. We'll now move into the Q&A, and please do feel free to submit your questions in via Slido. I'm going to abuse my chair's privilege and ask the first question, and I might direct this initially to Claire, but then keen for Richard and Megan's views as well. So we've talked about why this additional guidance is needed and why AI introduces new dimensions of risk and uncertainty. But what specifically is it about AI that makes it different to traditional intelligence sources? And what are the new AI-specific risks that we need to consider when introducing AI into the intelligence analysis and assessment pipeline? Claire, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, so I think, just pulling a little bit from Madeleine's introduction, in the intelligence assessment community, we are in the business of dealing with uncertainty in any case. If anyone imagines that what we're presented with on a day-to-day basis is a set of cast-iron, reliable facts or pieces of source information to grapple with, I'm afraid it doesn't work like that at all. We are very much in the business of having to deal with information of various levels of testedness, trustedness, reliability, and having to work with that. I think the things that are important to consider when we're putting AI into the mix is we might be really thoughtful about what the extent of representativeness or bias in a particular data set is, but if an AI system is operating over that data, it may exacerbate in its outputs some of that bias that has been baked in the way it's been trained. And also, algorithms may behave in unpredictable ways. So they might fail in ways that we have not anticipated. I think that the third thing about interpretability is also really, really important. And this came out, I think, quite strongly in the tabletop exercising, which was that decision makers, I think, are really, and I think rightly, uncomfortable in placing a significant amount of weight on the outputs of systems where they have no sense of why the AI has reached that conclusion. And particularly if that AI does not have a track record of accurate and consistent outputs, then there's going to be quite a lot of questions about how much weight to put on the outputs. So, lots of experience, I think, and the analytic standards that we use and the ways that we go about describing uncertainty, I think, take us a long way in dealing with the new dimensions that AI brings in. But we also need to think a bit about how we evolve and iterate to make sure that we are fit for these challenges.
Brilliant, thank you, Claire. Rich, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just add to that, more from just the human factors side, and that is that, so things like the Butler Principles, the Chilcott reports, the setting up of the JAIO, was really there to try and improve the quality of intelligence assessment and the reliability and being able to handle uncertainty. So there's been a lot of investment over decade or so, I mean, I don't know the exact years, to basically manage uncertainty and to manage bias, human bias from human cognitive biases. So things like confirmation bias, anchoring bias, groupthink, these kind of factors that we all carry around with us every day. The issue, what also came from the research was that the use of AI can actually exacerbate some of those cognitive biases which we already have. So confirmation bias, for example, is when we look into something expecting to get the answer back that, we're expecting to get the answer back that we're expecting. AI is pretty good at doing that. Look at the way a chatbot talks to us. It's geared to actually give us what we want. So that is actually amplifying a cognitive bias that we have. It's the same with anchoring bias. The first piece of information that we get, we tend to hold on to that. That's the anchor. So if that's a compelling piece of intelligence which has been generated by an AI model, we'll hold on to that, even if human analysis refutes that initial machine learning model output. So we also have to consider, and this is where the training aspects come in of the assessments communities, as they're using AI, just be aware that the use of AI isn't going to actually amplify your own cognitive biases.
Great, Thank you, Rich. Megan, any further thoughts from you?
Yeah, just one thing to add is, I think when we're looking at kind of what's new, well, AI is new to all of us. And I think the point that I would like to get across is that it will be about building that sense of trust. We have a long way to go, and there are lots of factors and lots of things that we can do to build that level of trust. But that's what will be important if we do want to make sure that we're as prepared as possible to use new technologies in as effective ways as possible. It will be about creating that trust.